This is the one which we did last time, activity 2. Okay. So let's start today's class. Okay, 29. See, first of all, in the book, all right, I tried to like find few questions from the revision kit which we can do for what we are going to do today. We are doing that investment in foreign countries, right? Foreign currency investment. We were doing this segment. Now I tried to find some question from revision kit, but the issue is that you will not get one question. Which will only have something from these three chapters that we have done. All right. So until and unless we finish from chapter number 1 to chapter number 10, okay, at least, then only we can get into the revision kit and do something. Fine, because the questions which are given in the revision kit are a mix of everything. Fine. So we don't have a specific dedicated question. All right. So what we can do is we can go with the book quickly, finish the chapters quickly so that we can spend some time, or we'll try to do almost all the questions of the revision kit at least. Okay. So we were in chapter number 5. Okay, I don't know, the page number may not match, but still, I think the last question that we did was activity 2, page number 90. Is that correct? Is the page number matching? Can anybody check that?
No, sir. It's 100 in my book.
Okay, so there is something extra. All right. I hope. Okay, fine. So we'll see. Fine. And like we haven't still received the PDF version of this. I don't know whether they have it or not. Okay. So, see, 3.2, fine, evaluating projects and the complications. Fine. In that segment, they have given you a format. The best is we will do the next question and we'll be able to understand the format in a more better way. Okay. I think I have already discussed the things in the last class, that what are the important things which we need to pay attention to. Fine. Um, Foreign exchange interest rate parity. Yeah, I think it was here. Home country, foreign country. So the one thing is the different tax rate. This segment is called DTA, double taxation agreements, double taxation agreement between two countries. Fine. And then the operating this expense thing. Fine. So how to deal with that? So basically that is what we are going to do in today's question. Fine. Two things were there. Now in this question, this builds on the data from activity 2. So we have to read activity 2 and this question together. Fine. So first thing what I will do is I'll go back to activity 1 and I will copy the numbers from there. So 4 years, 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So cash flow which is given, I will write the initial investment here, which I will again remove from this point, but 2500, 2.5 million. And then cash flow is given in peso. Fine. 750, 950, 1250 and 1350. Okay. And what are the things they have given? Expected inflation rate in country Z and US is so and so. The spot rate is this. The company requires a return from this project 16%. So like few other informations which are available are like this. They have given us spot peso per dollar. So P per dollar spot is 2. Fine. and then they have given us KC 16%. Fine, and then they have given us inflation rate in country Z and USA. So inflation in Z is 3% and US it is 5%. So I think this is the entire information which was available in question number 2, which we have already taken here. Fine. Now, from this point onwards, what are the things they have given us? See, they are saying tax in country Z is 20% and in US it is 30%. So here we have taxation 20% and here we have 30%, and we are doing the calculation from US point of view, from dollar point of view. So we will be paying 20% tax in that country, and then we'll be paying 10% tax more in our country. Correct? That is the DTA, double tax agreement. Then what are the things? Tax is payable, profits are earned in the same year that profits are earned. Fine. Tax allowable depreciation, tax allowable depreciation of this per peso straight line are available. So first of all, from this we can deduct the tax, right? Sorry, depreciation 100. So 100 every year taxation for this is the tax allowable depreciation. So we can deduct. Then what do we have? Will this company will charge its overseas subsidiary 25,000 pesos per year. Fine. So this is provision for internal services. Fine. So operating expenses for this foreign company, all right, is 25. So they will be paying 25. So they'll deduct that from their expense, from their profits. They'll deduct that. Okay. And then what is this? 50, okay. Okay, this is in dollar, the last one. 15,000 per year in extra administration cost will be incurred. So basically, like, if you want to understand this with an assumption, fine. This is a US company. They have a subsidiary, fine, in some other country, country Z. So all the records from here are to be maintained. So what they have done is they have hired an employee, fine, at their head office, whom they are paying $15,000 per annum just to maintain the records of all this company. So whatever they want to know, they will get it from this guy. Fine. That is what, like, kind of an explanation, assumption. 15,000 per year in extra administration cost because of this. So fine. So when we are doing the cash flow, we'll be subtracting that 15 also later on. Now, out of all of this, what do you get? How much? 750 minus 100, 650, so 625. Then this will be how much? 825, I think. 1150, 1125, and 1250, 1225. Fine. Now on all of these numbers, these are all in pesos, we'll have to pay tax. Okay. So 20% of this 62.5, 125 is the tax which will be paying in peso in country Z. Okay. This will become how much? 160, 165. And this will become how much? 112. So 225, and this will become 122.5, and the double of that, tax at the rate of 20%. So this will be how much? 245, 245. Are we fine till here? After this, I will add the depreciation that I have deducted. Okay. So when you add the depreciation of 100, this is the cash flow in pesos, correct? This is the cash flow in pesos. So how much do you get here? Minus 125. So that will be about 500 and this 100. So this is 600. Please do the maths and tell me now. My calculator is not working.
760.
760. Then,
1000.
okay.
880.
880. Now, what we have to do is, because this was the cash flow in pesos, right? Okay. So we'll convert this net operating cash flow in peso. Fine, this one. And here, let this be 0. And now I will add this initial investment here, which is 2500. So this becomes our net cash flow. This becomes our net cash flow in peso. So 2500 negative 600 760 1880. Now we need to convert this in dollar. For that we need the rates, exchange rate. Okay. So exchange rate currently was peso per dollar and it was 2, right? Now I think we did this calculation last time. Once more we need to do this. What will be the expected interest rate here? 2 multiplied by, since peso is on the top, 1.03 by 1.05. Correct? Using IRP, interest rate parity. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So how much do we get?
1.96.
So 1.96. Again, like same, multiply 1.03 divide by 1.05. What do you get?
1.92.
1.92. Okay.
1.87.
1.87. Last one.
1.85.
1.85. Okay, now this is okay. Here in the book also, I think I can see 1080. Is this number? Check it once again. Is it 880? This one?
Sorry, it's 1080.
Okay. Fine. Now what we'll do is we'll convert all of this into dollars. Fine. So net cash flow in dollars is how much? So do the conversion. This will become 1250. Fine. How much is this? Now we are dividing, right? Because peso is given and the rate is also peso and dollar. We want dollar. So we'll divide, right? This dollar goes up, peso comes down, peso and peso cancel. You will be left with dollar. Is this maths okay? Because I mean, currently it is easy. You can do that okay, like 2 peso per dollar. So you can understand that okay, peso is more, dollar is less. So here the number should be less, right? And there is only one way of making the 600 less, by dividing it by 1.96. That is a good logic, but like it doesn't work everywhere. So I want you guys to be okay with this ABCD. Fine, because this works at all the times. Okay. So if you have any problems with this, we can work on that. But I want you finally to be okay with this. Now divide all the numbers and tell me, what do you get? Okay, I think here we have the numbers 1250. Yeah. See, in the book, they have helped us with this. So no point doing the extra calculation. Fine, 395, 530. And just try this one and see, are you getting 583 or not? Just try the last one. So we'll understand that fine, we have to divide.
Yes, it's correct.
So fine, this is till here we are done. And now we are in dollar. Now we are in dollar. Okay. Now, what are the extra things which we are going to do here now? Fine, in dollars. So see, here you have to pay the extra tax 10%. Okay. Tax at the rate of 10%. Right? Are we okay with this one? Fine. We have to pay this tax. Then see this 25, this operating expense 25 which they were paying, we are receiving that, right? They were paying to us only, correct?
Okay.
All right. I need some responses. Yes, no, or is there a doubt? Should I explain more? Is this point okay? This 25 operating expense, the foreign subsidiary was paying to us only for administrative expenses or something. See, the K-Stat company will charge its overseas subsidiary 25,000 peso per year for the provision of internal services, for the provision of internal services. Fine.
Yeah.
So now uh, this 25 we are going to receive. So here I will write provision for internal services. So um, internal services charge. Fine. That will be again one line of cash flows. We are bearing some expense, right? 15,000 per year extra admin. So extra admin cost. Okay. And this extra admin cost, fine. I'll be writing here. So that is 15. No, here 15 negative. Do you understand this 15 negative? Okay. And now on this and this, there has been no tax, correct? Because this is happening in US only. So for these two things, what is the additional tax? All right. So tax at the rate of 30% in US. So whatever your dollar income or expenses, on that you need to pay this, correct? Now, do you understand this format and these things? Like, are these correct? Because this is what you have to write. This is what you have to do. This is how you have to think. And like, these are, how should I put it? If you just like, memorize, because this is repeat on a repetition basis. Fine. In the questions also, you will get this only, this kind of calculation. Fine. Subsidiary is paying some expense back to the head office. So there it will be deducted and it will be converted and written here. Again, fine. The tax adjustment two times, once here. Like basically we are doing three times tax. One, two, and the third one is here. Tax. Fine. So these are like repetitive kind of stuff which if you do 2 3 questions you will see that same thing is coming again and again. Now in revision kit they haven't given you this kind of a question. Why? because in the revision kit, the questions which they have given, they have added one segment for this, where you will have to calculate this also. Now that kind of, like, that part we haven't discussed yet, so we can't do it right now. Question from the revision kit. Okay, they have put something here like from inflation or something. So this is the problem that we have right now. For instance, now see, internal service charge, easy stuff. Let us fill those things which are easy. Fine. See, 25 is what you already have here. Okay, and you already have the exchange rate. So convert that into dollar and see how many dollars you are going to receive. So quickly do the math and give me the answer.
You mean 25 divided by 1.96, yeah?
Yes,
12.76.
12.76, right? Hmm. Right,
Next
let's
is
write 12.76. Okay, next
13.02.
13.02.
Third is 13.36.
13.36.
And 13.51.
13.51. So this was easy. This is what we are going to receive, right? So that's why I'm not putting this in negative sign. Is that okay? Okay. Now this is little bit interesting. Tax as per DTA 10%. Okay. So see, here you have paid 20, right? On these numbers. Now you have to pay 10% on those numbers again. Okay. So do the maths. 62, 625 into 10%. What do you get?
62.5.
So do you understand? We need to write 62.5 here, but there is one problem. This is in peso. And now, see, we have done the exchange rate and converted it into dollars. Now we, like, all these numbers from this point onwards, everything is in dollars. So I
So
cannot write peso here. Is this okay?
okay.
Fine. So basically, our main profit from the subsidiary was 625, on which 20% is paid in the subsidiary's country, and the remaining 10% will be paid in our country. So on the same amount. So calculate 10% of this, but bring it here through the conversion. Fine. While doing the conversion, so I will write one number here: 625 into 10%, and the whole thing divided by 1.96. Is that okay? And now rest of the calculation we'll do using the same, like, format kind of thing. Okay. So first number will be how much? 62.5 divided by 1.96. What do you get?
31.89.
31.89. This is what we need to pay, right?
Yes.
For tax. Then the next one, 825. So 82.5 divided by 1.92.
42.97.
42.97. Okay.
60.16.
0.16.
66.21. 22. Sorry.
66.22. Fine. Now after this, see, these were the two things which were new to us, right? Remember, this is what is happening in US only, right? So we need to do the taxation for this. So see here, and I hope you are like, understanding this. See, we, like, there are two countries, country Z and US. Fine. So here you have made some profit, fine, which is taxable, and hence you are paying tax on the basis of this. All right. There is something which you have already transferred as an expense for yourself. Okay, so for this company it is income. Okay, and that income needs to be taxed in US, fine, at the rate of complete 30%. So you need to pay 30% on this income, fine. Whereas the, like, profit after paying tax, whatever cash flow you are getting, you are converting that in your home currency, fine, in home currency, and bringing it back, fine. On this you have to pay DTA. So like this whole thing is one sided story. Here, this income which you are getting, on this income you have to pay separate tax, right? Like this one, let's take it that side. So on this income you need to pay complete tax, fine. In our question, though, they have added one more line. They are saying that you are getting this income and in US you have one expense also, fine. So fine, for these income and expenses, tax will be paid in US at the rate of 30% complete tax, fine. This is one side of the story, this is one side of the story. This is what I'm trying to say. So I hope it is fine. Okay, now going back to this, now do the maths. See, 12.76 minus 15, so you will get something in minus. All right, minus
Ye-
2.24.
Yes.
30% of that is how much?
Minus 0.675.
This is tax saving now. All right, how much?
675.
0.68. Okay, next. This is tax saving.
0.59.
Because we are making loss in our home country, so because of that we will get some tax saving here.
1.64.
This is too much. Is this 1 point, like, check again?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, 30%, right? 0.49. Last one is 0.45.
0.45. Now what you have to do is the exchanges, and these are all in dollars, right? Add all of this. Now you will get net cash flow in dollar. Okay. So 1250 negative. And now how much? So we have to start from here. So 306 minus 31.89 plus 12.76 minus 15 and plus 0.68. How much do you get? Too much of calculator. This is torture, but please go ahead with this.
272.55.
272.55. Okay, next.
350.64.
350.64.
468.69.
468.69 you said, right?
Yes.
Okay.
515.74.
515.74, right?
Yes.
Now, actually, if you see, we have done all this factors, so I mean decimals, so we are getting all the numbers. If you match from our book, see all the numbers are matching. Now, all you need to do is present value factor at the rate of 16%. First, you calculate that and then multiply these two numbers. You will get present value of cash flow and then net present value, the total of all of that. Fine. Like for example, this will be 1, this will be 1250. Fine. Now what do you get here? 1 divided by 1.16, 1 divided by 1.16 square. We need 3 decimal places. How much do you get value here? Tell me. 1 divided by 1.16.
Uh, 0.862.
You are using scientific calculator, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So 0.862. Okay.
Yes.
Now
Yes.
directly you multiply. Give me the present value also.
Uh, uh, sorry.
And then we'll move forward.
234.99.
234.9. Okay. Then 1 divided by 1.16 square, what do you get?
0.743.
0.743 and multiply.
260.5.
Okay. Next.
0.641.
Okay. 0.641.
300.43. 0.552. 284.7.
And now again calculator. It's too boring, right? Too much of calculation. But go ahead, see what do you get. Hopefully you will get somewhere close to minus 168. Do the math and see what are you getting.
169.4.
You are getting 169.4.
Yes. 47.
Fine, so we are almost close to that. I hope you understand the format, the pattern in which we are supposed to work here. This is the full calculation. It started from here, right? So what we did is first the entire calculation in peso all the way down to this. This whole thing is in pesos, right? And here there is no rocket science. This we have done in previous like subjects also. In F9 it was there. Fine. So once you calculated cash flow there, now use the exchange rate, convert it into dollars. So till here we are done. When you are converting now, these are the tricky thing, because generally when we calculate net cash flow, we directly use PV and we get the present value. Here, this is new. Okay, and this is exactly what I was talking in the last class, that these are the new things which are going to come in when you do foreign investment. Okay, because in foreign investment, what can be the scenario? See, scenario number one. Okay, let's remove this. Okay, so the first thing can be, see, this is, let's say, your home country, or let's use the word that home country. Fine. So here you have one company and you have purchased a subsidiary. Fine. In a foreign country. Now, simple calculation, simple stuff, which was activity number 2. There, they have not told you anything that what is intercompany transaction or any other stuff. Fine. In fact, they ignored taxation also in the second, like activity 2. So there, it is very simple. Like you will do normal accounting, normal maths, fine, normal calculation for the foreign country, and once you get the net cash flow, all right, you will transfer that, fine, while converting. So it will be converted in home currency, and here you will use your present value factor and do the net present value calculation. Fine. This is the simple one. Now, in this, at times, now when the tax is added, the first problem is with the tax, the double tax agreements. Okay. If tax here is 20% and tax here is 15%, then no problem at all. You will not get this issue. Okay, because if you have paid 20, your government is not going to refund, so it's gone, forget about it. If it is 25, then after bringing this net cash flow here, you will have to pay 5% extra tax. Fine. So that is your line adjustment number one. The second one is, if this foreign country was, I mean this subsidiary company was incurring some expenses, fine, and those expenses were being transferred to you, like if they were paying you some fees, commission or anything, fine, so for you that is an income for the home country, and here it was treated as an expense while calculating the net cash flow. Fine, so on this amount there is no tax paid, not even this 20%. This was also not paid in the foreign country, right? So when you get this money, fine, on this income you have to pay entire 25% tax. These are the two additional things which we need to understand. Fine. Now this is done. Fine. Then what we have is exchange controls. Another potential problem is that some countries impose delay on the payment of a dividend from an overseas investment. These exchange control create liquidity problem. Like these are the things that you have to read, understand, fine, so that you can write in your answer reasoning. Fine. Again, advanced level papers are not all about maths. Fine, it is about analysis, and analysis means you have to do the calculation and then you have to present the entire calculation in words, right? So you should know how to write, how to explain your calculations. Okay, so there can be exchange controls, means like at times there is, there is a, what do you call that, repatriation laws, fine, where you cannot transfer from one country to another, you cannot transfer the funds. Fine. So in that case, if I am like, company A having a subsidiary in another company, fine, this is my subsidiary. Now I am doing the evaluation, right? I am doing the evaluation. So I don't care how much money the subsidiary is making. Fine. For me, the evaluation is what? If I have to calculate net present value here, I need to know the cash flow of my company or the cash flow of this company is receiving, let's say, $100. Fine, but it can transfer to me only $40. So for me, the annual receipt is 100 or 40. It has to be 40 only, right? Fine. So that is like, that is the issue. Transfer repatriation laws, we have to take that also into consideration. There is something called withholding tax. Fine. When the company is paying dividend, they have to pay this extra tax. Fine. And how will this company transfer funds to you? How will this company actually transfer funds to you? Fine. In this question that we did, we were assuming like no such restriction. All the money can be transferred. So easily, see, we converted the entire cash flow through the exchange rate and we converted that into dollars. Means if I transfer this much of money from the foreign country, I will get all these home currencies, all these dollar values. Fine. So there can be some withholding and withholding tax also, which we'll finally have to consider while doing our maths. When we'll see all these stuff, when we'll get all these things, we'll do. Fine. Now, strategies dealing with the exchange control, what are the things that you can do? Here, see, transfer pricing, have they written somewhere? I cannot see it right now, but somewhere it must be there. as a company, how will you deal with these laws as a company? Like, you have to find out a way, correct, to transfer the money, right? This is done through transfer prices. Fine. Basically, like company A is providing some service, and because of that, now the subsidiary needs to pay. Okay. So if the profit here is 100, or like, almost on an average 100, so this way or that way, you will make some business where you will sell, this company A will sell some useless product at a very high rate. Like for example, something the cost of which is only $10, I am selling to B for $100. So what am I doing actually? Transferring the profit from this company to this company, $90, right? Basically, if I'm doing this, if company A is selling something which was worth $10 at $100 to the subsidiary, basically what is happening, that the profit is being transferred. This transaction that I'm talking about will increase expenses of subsidiary, right? So if the expenses are increased, what will happen? The profits will reduce, right? So this subsidiary does not needs to pay dividend to me. Fine. By doing all these kind of tricks, legally, I can try to transfer the money, and this is how the world operates. All right. Like, we as individual, we try to find loopholes into the law, and the law also, like, this year or next year, they get to know that, okay, this is what people are doing. So they make another law for it. And that is why our, like, our book of law keeps on getting thicker and complicated. Fine. Here also, there are rules on transfer pricing. Okay. You cannot charge any amount as per your will. Fine. Accounting wise, you guys do whatever you feel like. It is your company, right? Do whatever you feel like. But when transfer of money will be concerned, fine, the government, like, it is somewhat similar to this taxation policy of the government. You can write whatever depreciation you feel like. Fine, tax authorities will take your PL, they will, like, just erase the depreciation that you have written. Okay, and they will do the depreciation as per their rules. They will put that value, and now whatever the profit is, you need to pay tax on that, not on what you have calculated. So luckily, if it matches, no problem. But if it doesn't, fine, you may end up paying extra tax, or maybe getting some rebate from tax. Correct? That is how deferred tax is born. That's how the concept of deferred tax comes in. Are we fine with all this? Okay.
Yes.
Now again, in this workbook, there is very, like, less space given for all these things that we were discussing right now. Okay. But all of this, what I'm telling you, is somewhere in the book, and we'll get across that. Fine. It is, as I was telling you, see, these concepts are all entangled in each other. It's very difficult to talk about one thing and not talk about the other. Fine. So until unless we just finish from 1 to chapter number 10, fine, then you will have an idea where you can see, okay, how things are connected. Okay. Now, point number 4, financing decision, managing risk of international investment. Okay. So how can you manage the risk of international investment? If you have done some international investment, how can you manage that? So here they have given you some calculation on risk, and have they discussed? No. All right, see, managing international, like, risk for international investment, there are many other exchange rate coverage stuff, which is in, like, again, later part of the chapter, like from chapter number 11 to 13. Fine, you will understand, you will read about all this risk management stuff. All right, that is in chapter number 11, 12, 13, risk management. Fine. Here what they have discussed is what is the risk which you need to manage. All right. So first point is type of international debt finance. In international market, what kind of debt finance you can get? Point number 1, Loan from foreign bank, that is a kind of foreign exchange or foreign currency loan. All right. So like your company is in Qatar and you want to do some business in India, fine. So you can take a loan from an Indian bank, fine. So a Qatari company taking loan from an Indian bank, fine. So that is one way of getting into this international loans, international debt finance. Another one is Euro bond. Now this is interesting. Euro bond. What is Euro bond? Now here you need to understand Euro actually means foreign. Okay. It doesn't have to be in this Euro. All right. And again, these things are like the names were first given by the US people because they discovered all these things literally. So they got the chance to name things. Fine. Now, what it means is a US company when it takes loan from a like from a US source in dollar. Okay. So that is like normal loan. Fine. If they are taking loan from any other country, so how can you do that? See, a US company can issue bond, fine, in the US market. Now if they want to issue the same thing in some other market, there are multinational companies, right, who can issue, like they are listed in different stock exchanges across the world, fine. So in that case what they can do is they can issue, fine, in some other currency, fine, that is known as euro bond. When you issue bond in a different currency, not in your home currency, that is called euro bond, fine. Okay, see, large companies with excellent credit rating use the euro market to borrow in a foreign currency. In, see, again, use the euro market to borrow in any foreign currency. So it's not euro, it's not this currency, fine, it's not this currency. Okay. Euro means European currency or something like that. No, it's not like that. Euro market means the foreign market. Fine. Now, if an Indian company, okay, where the currency is rupees, issue this bond in a, like, let's say in some in Bangladesh, all right. If they issue bond in Bangladesh market, this will be termed for this Indian company as Euro bond, though Europe was nowhere close to the transaction. But for this Indian company, this will be known as a Eurobond. Fine. Now, syndicated loan. Syndicate is actually a group. Okay. And we are talking about like international companies means huge company, huge investment. So it is not possible for one individual to finance. So what you can do is you can take a syndicated loan, and that basically means a group of lenders, because at times the banks may not be interested in giving you loan, or maybe they are asking for, since too much of risk is involved, right? So they are asking for a huge amount, or interest rate is too high for if you take a loan from the bank. Fine. So group of lenders, high net worth individuals, they'll come together. Fine. They will form a syndicate and they will give you loan. So basically, many lenders giving loan to one company. This is called syndicated loan. Okay. Now you do the reading. International debt finance may help in some risk associated with international investment, and then types of risk. They have given us three risks. I think we have already discussed this. Economic risk, translation risk, and here they have written political risk. Political risk reduces taxable profit, reducing exposure to increases in the corporation tax. Basically, political risk means the, like the politics of the country. Because of that, so the rule making, the parliamentary changes which is happening in the country, if you have a stable government in a company, in a country, fine, like one party is ruling and it is like normal stable going on in one country, so the political risk is down. All right. Political risk high means one party is winning the election and they are making some new rules. Again, the new party will win the election, the other one which lost will win the election, they will change all these rules. So that means the political risk is too high. We don't know the new party will come and what policies they will make. So politically stable or politically unstable country. Fine. So on the basis of that, the risk is high or low. Now here we have a weird kind of question, translation risk. Generally, you shouldn't have this kind of a question generally. Fine, but anyways, translation risk. They have given you a scenario and a balance sheet. Fine. So the balance sheet is, it is now November 07. QWE is a public listed company supermarket based in France. Its forecast statement of financial position on 31st December 07 is given below. Forecast statement, right? Currently it is November 07 and on 31st December 07 we are expecting these things. See, we are expecting asset to be 14,000 and okay, one second, let me write it here. Asset to be 14,000 and all of this is in million euro. Fine. So this is asset done. Then on the other side we have equity 5650 and we have floating rate debt. So long term loan is 2000 and current liability is 6350 and the total here also is 14,000. So this is what we are expecting the numbers to be. Fine. And all of this is in euro. Now this does not take into account an investment of 1000 million dollars. See the problem, I cannot just add 1000 here and say 15. Why? Because this is euro and this is dollar. Okay, so I will have to convert this into euro, correct? Then only I'll be able to add first thing. Now which is about to be made. Fine. So if I do this, what will happen? See here, something will be added in the investment, added asset side, and I will have to bring that money from somewhere, right? So either I will be issuing some more equity or some, like, debt. I will take some loan, correct? So how will I make this happen, and because of that what other changes will happen? Fine. The current exchange rate is 1 euro equal to $1.1. All right, 1 euro equal to $1.1. And since our currency, home currency in this case is euro only, so we have to do the transaction in euro only. Okay, so we have to write everything in euro format. Fine. Now but it could rise to 1.4. So today the rate is 1 euro, so dollar 1.1 per euro. Fine. And it can become 1.4 per euro. These are the two conditions they have given. These things can happen. Now see, prepare a revised forecast statement of financial position assuming that project is funded using long term debt finance, using long term debt finance in euro. Underline that word, in euro. Fine. Underline that word, because the next line is prepare the same calculation assuming that the project is funded using debt, dollar debt. So the fight here is not between, they are not saying that this $1000 that you are going to invest, either you will bring from here or you will bring from here. No, they are not saying that. Fine. You will be bringing this 1000 from loan only, right? But in one scenario you are taking $1000 loan, in another scenario you are taking a loan, because see this is the today's rate, right? Okay, so do the maths. Euro wise how much? Euro wise this will become how much? So divide, yeah, divide 1000 divided by 1.1909 is what you will get. Are we fine with this? So understand this, either you will be taking $1000 loan today because that is what you want to invest, all right, or you will be taking euro 909 and you will be investing this. Fine. anyways you will be investing 909 only, because see, we have to convert this into euro. We cannot write this like this. So in both the cases 909 euro will increase. All right. And here also we cannot write in two currencies. So if you have taken this loan, dollar loan, then also we will have to convert. Okay. First of all, just understand the difference. All right. Just understand the difference. You are a euro based, this is your home currency company. You have an investment in dollar, you want to invest in dollar. You have got two options: either borrow in dollar direct, okay, or borrow in home currency and convert, borrow in euro. Do you understand this part? Do you understand this? Two options you have got. Okay. Now you borrow in euro or you borrow in dollar, but you will make the accounts in euro only, right? You will make the accounts in euro, because you cannot write floating rate debt is 3000. How? 2000, 2000 euro and $1000. You cannot write that 3000. Fine. So whatever you do, your reporting will be in euro only. Okay. Now one by one, let's do this. Okay. So first, let's start with euro loan. Let's start with euro loan, euro debt. So if I am taking the debt in euro and the rate is 1.1, fine. So $1.1 per euro, then what will happen? And if the rate is 1.4, if the rate is 1.4 per euro, then what will happen? Fine. These are the two scenarios. So they want me to do this. Okay, fine. Now let's do the calculation and see what are we going to get in both the scenarios. So first, if I am going to take euro debt, all right, I want to invest how much? I want to invest $1000. Fine. If the rate is, because this is the today's rate, this is the today's rate, November rate. How much euro I will have to take? So this divided by 1.1, my answer is 909. I will be taking a loan of, fine, 909 euros, converting it into $1000, and I will invest. Are we fine and okay with this one?
Yes.
Now see, what is the value of your assets? The value of your asset is basically 14,000 euro, fine, plus $1000. But I cannot write it like this, right? I will have to convert this into euro, and if I convert this into euro, it will be euro 909. Do you understand this?
Yes.
So eventually I will have to write what? Like in my balance sheet, what will I write? I will be writing 14,909. That is my asset. Done. Okay. My equity will remain 5650 only. And the loan. So see, you are taking a loan of in euro, right? So how much loan more you have taken? You have taken 909 more. So this will become 2909, and this will become 6350, and everything will match. Are we okay? This is November. Are we
Yes.
fine with this?
Yes. Yes.
Now, see, the magic is happening here. In December, the rate changed. In December, the values changed. All right. Now, pay attention. Here, you have 1000, sorry, 14,000 euro plus your investment was $1,000, right? Your investment was $1,000, correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
Now, if you convert $1,000 with 1.4, how many euros do you get?
714.
714. So that means the asset value now, if I convert this, fine, into, because see, in 1 month, if you have purchased a machine for $1,000, it will remain a machine only. It is not going to evaporate. Correct? So dollar value in 1 month, November to December, the dollar value is 1000. But when you convert it into euro, you will get 714. So now your investment in euro is 14714. Agree or not? Hello?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. I have to do mic testing now. All right. So see, the current liability has got nothing to do with all this. It will remain same. Leave it aside. Now, the problem here is, how are you going to deal with this? Because see, what am I supposed to write here? My loan. Because remember, what are we doing here? Euro debt means you have actually taken a loan of how much? $909 you have taken. Remember, sorry, 909 euro you have taken. Correct? So your loan will remain 2909 only. Yes or no? Think about it and tell me. In the month of November, fine, you took 909 euros. So in the month of December, it's not going to decrease. Like, you are in Eurozone and you have taken a loan in Euro. It is like, you are here in Qatar and you have taken a loan in Real. So will that decrease because of the exchange rate? Do you understand what I'm saying? See, you are here in Qatar, you have taken a loan of, let's say, 10,000 QR in November, fine, and then invested it in a foreign currency, fine. So let's say that foreign currency of yours where you are investing is pound, okay. So you converted this into pounds and divide by 5, you will get what? 2000. So 2000 pounds is what you invested in UK. Okay. Now, this is in November. In December, your loan value, because you are here in Qatar, you have taken the loan in Real, is still 10,000 QR, correct?
Yes.
Now, this value, because the exchange rate, let's say, has increased from 5 QR per pound, it has increased to 6, let's say. All right. So the asset that you had purchased, which was 2000 pounds, all right, which is still 2000 pounds, when you convert it with 6, now the asset value will increase from 10,000 QR to 12,000 QR. Do you understand? But the loan will remain same, right? Do you understand? In
Yes.
this case, what is happening? In this particular case, what is happening? See, you have purchased a foreign uh, asset, all right, and because of the exchange rate, you are making a profit, right? In this case, see, what you have purchased was worth 10,000 real, but at the end of the month, in only 1 month's time, it became worth 12,000 real. So that's a profit, right? And profit is adjusted with the PL, sorry, with the equity, right? In this case also, this 909 was the euro value of the investment. And now because of exchange rate, it has reduced to 714. So how much money you are losing there? 5, 9, 195, right?
Yes, yes. So it's
So 195 you subtract from here. What do you get?
5,455.
5,455.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what you will get as equity and your balance here will be 14,714. Fine with this? Now, first let me just remove all this. Okay. See, Remember, euro is your home currency. Okay, remember that. Keep that in mind. Euro is your home currency. And now we are going to take a dollar loan. Okay, we are going to get a dollar debt. Fine. So now what we are going to do? We'll take a debt of $1,000 and invest in a dollar asset. Right? Fine. Now, when you are making the balance sheet, obviously you cannot write dollar there. The loan that you have taken is in dollar. I agree. Right? But when you are making the accounts, you have to translate it into euro, right? Now, dollar 1.1 per euro, if that is the rate, then how it will look like? And when the rate will change from that to 1.4 per euro, then how will it look like? Okay. First of all, see, the first part will remain exactly same because in November you have taken this dollar debt and invested. Fine. So again, here you want to write 14,000 euro plus $1,000 because that is the asset you have purchased. But you cannot do this. Fine. Euro is your home currency, so you will have to write it. The rate is 1.1. You are translating this, you will get 909. So here it will be euro 14909. Simple. Okay. Now your balance sheet on the other side, equity will remain 5650, your current liability will remain 6350, and loan. So in the loan segment, again you want to write 2000 euro plus $1,000 because you have taken a dollar debt, remember? Okay, but you cannot write this, so you will convert this dollar, fine, at the rate of 1.1, so you will get 909, and hence you will have to write 2909, and this will match 14909. So actually if you see, this is exactly similar to this one, the first one. All the numbers are matching. Fine. So basically if you take a loan in dollar or in euro, on the date of loan it will be same, no matter, no problem. All right, but see, the issue will happen here. After 1 month the rate changed, correct? On this day also you wanted to write 14,000 euro plus $1,000 because the dollar is like the investment is in dollar, the machine that you have purchased was in dollar, so you wanted to write dollar here, which you cannot, so you will translate, but this time it will be translated as 714, right? This will be translated as 714 euros. So finally you will end up writing what? 14714. Okay, that is your asset. Now here, see, you will write loan how much? The loan you want to write 2000 euro plus $1,000, right? You want to write this only, correct?
Yes.
Actually, when you are taking the loan in foreign currency, what is happening? When the exchange rate is moving, fine, when the exchange rate is changing, your asset value is getting affected as well as your debt value is also getting affected in the same format, right? In the same way, correct? Hence, there is no profit loss. Fine. And you will see if you translate this, it will become 714 now because now the rate is 1.4, right? So instead of $1,000, now your loan is how much? Your loan is 714. That means here you are going to write 2714 euro. This will remain 5650. This will remain 6350. And when you will do a total, you will get 14714. So what was the moral of the story? Like what were we doing here? Fine. The entire change which is happening is, see, is here in these two things. Okay. The entire change which is happening is between these two things. Okay. When you have taken loan in home currency, all right, and invested in foreign currency, loan in home currency and invested in foreign currency, Now, when the rate is moving, your investment is fluctuating, not the loan, because you have taken the loan in home currency, right? Fine. So when the interest rate is moving, your asset value is fluctuating and the effect is being shown in the equity side, is in the equity PL. The effect of that is happening in the PL. But when you are taking the loan also in foreign currency, then what is happening? If your asset is increasing, your loan is also increasing. If your asset is decreasing, your loan is also decreasing. Hence, no impact on the equity. Are we fine with that?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So that is like, that is what they wanted from us, and these are the four things that you have to write there in the book also. Fine. And then we have financial strategy. So a firm that is planning a strategy of international expansion does not only have to consider new direct investment. Fine. This may be a sensible approach because it does not allow a firm to retain control over its value chain. Okay, this is all story expansion. So other form of expansion may be preferable. For example, a firm might take over or merge with established firms abroad. Joint venture with a local overseas partner might be entered into. These are another ways of expanding from one country to another. Okay, that was the end of our chapter number 5, and we have already covered the NPV part. Fine, net present value and all that stuff. Now we'll be starting into the other chapters 6, 7, 8, 9, so that we can finish till 10, and then we can do one full question. Now we have enough time today, so I want to go back to chapter number 1 and 2. These are small chapters and these are miscellaneous topics. Fine. So let's just finish that, because then we'll be able to say that we have covered from 1 to 5. Okay, and these are very small and basically it is kind of revision of the basic finance. Okay, so let's start from the first chapter, financing objectives and all that. From that point, financial objectives, and here I think there will be something which I will miss, because see, you guys were 10 pages ahead of me, right? I said 90 and you said no sir, it is on 100. Correct? So that means they have added 10 more pages which I am unaware of. In my book, I don't have it. Okay? So wherever, whatever that page is or point is, just let me know. Find that I have skipped this, or there was one more paragraph which I am not reading. Okay? Now, point number 1, financial objective. Profit maximization is often assumed incorrectly to be the objective of the business. Fine. So generally we think of profit maximization. That is not the case. Why profit maximization is not a sufficient objective? Because investors care about the future, investors care about the dividend, investors care about the financing plans, investors care about the risk management. Fine. So the correct word is maximization of shareholders' wealth, right, rather than profit maximization. Okay, and there, we'll come across these kind of things where, let's say there is a merger, all right, there is an opportunity for merger. If you do this merger, okay, what will happen is EPS of your company will grow. Okay, EPS of your company will grow, but the market price of the share will fall. So should you go ahead with this merger or not? Fine, earning per share will grow, increase. Fine, but market price of the shares will decrease. So the answer is, we don't want this merger, not required. Fine, we are not looking for profit maximization. This is what your ultimate aim is going to be, market price per share. This shouldn't go down. If this is going down, that means you as a finance manager of the company has failed. Fine. So now formula to learn total shareholder return is dividend plus capital gain. Magical formula, right? See, once upon a time, you guys may have done this return. Fine. The formula was P1 minus PO plus D1 by P0. I don't know you have done this or not. Investors, shareholders return, they used to write this shareholders return for one period. Now, if you look at this, let's say you purchased a share for $20, right? The company paid dividend in that year of $2, and at the end of the period, the share price is $21. Okay, so if you put all of that in perspective, what do you get? See, 21 minus 20, that is actually the $1 capital profit. $1 there is the capital appreciation, right? Fine, that is also your profit, plus $2, that is your revenue profit. Fine, and what was your investment? 20. So if you do the math, 3 by 20, 3 by 20 will give you 15% return. So if you do the math, you will get 15% as the answer. Fine, and if you segregate this, what are you getting here? See, this 21 minus 20 is known as capital gain. Fine, and this is known as your dividend yield. This is the dividend that you got, correct? Financial strategy formulation. So how do you make the financial strategy? So maximizing the shareholders wealth is at the top. That is what your finance, like, the main thing is. Then you do the investment decision, financing decision, dividend decision. Basically, this is covered in a more better form in, like, in my introduction class of F9, when I do the introduction of F9 finance. All right, since we are starting at an advanced level, I cannot like go back and do the whole thing. But see, this is how it is. What is basically, like, what is finance, right? What is finance? So if this is your company, and I will do this quickly because I, like, it's not required to do at that much of length here. Fine, so I'll be little bit fast. See, any decision in regard to money made in the company is in purview of finance. Done. Now, what are these decisions? First thing, how much money do you want to do your business? Fine, capital requirement. So we have a chapter called working capital requirement. Fine, then plus fixed assets. How much fixed assets do you need? So if you add these two, you will get the capital requirement. Then the next question is sources of capital. From where are you going to bring this? Fine, from where will you bring this money? So now you have equity, preference, fine, bonds, loan. These are the places where you can go and ask for money. Now all of these people are not going to give you free money, so you talk about cost of equity now, cost of capital. All right, so for equity, cost of preference, fine, cost of debt, and cost of term loan. Fine, all of these things, like, this is all part of what? Finance. All right, and while choosing from where we should bring the money, you should look into capital structure of the company. Fine, you should take care of capital structure. What is the debt equity ratio? You have to think of accordingly, you will bring the money. Now see, you did so much of studies for what? To determine that, okay, how much money I need and from where am I going to bring it, then what to do with this money. So for that you learn investment decision. Fine, investment appraisal or project appraisal, capital budgeting, you call it whatever you feel like, but that is the investment decision chapter. All right, NPV, IRR, you do all these things for what? NPV, IRR, payback, you did all this for what? For deciding that, okay, I got the money, where am I going to invest the money? And once you are done with that, then what do you do? What's next? What to do with this money, the profit that I have made? So there is a chapter called dividend policy. You decide that whether you will pay dividend or you don't pay dividend, correct? So basically three things, right? One is the financing decision. So how much finance is required and from where am I going to bring it? Then investment decision, how am I going to use that money? And whatever profit or loss I have made, what to do with the dividend? Fine, so for any company, these are the main three blocks, fine, which are divided into small chapters. Financing decision. So now they are talking about financing decision. And anyways, see, for finance, there is like, at the end, they have made one bracket and written risk management, right? So in today's world, finance is basically divided into two parts. One is the corporate finance, the finance that I was talking about right now, finance in a company. Another one is risk management, FRM, financial risk management. Okay, so this risk management which they have written, it is like in today's world, it is actually 50% of finance. Okay, and it is very interesting because share market, derivatives, NBFCs, all of that come under this heading. Fine. Now, um, what was I going to tell you? Yes, risk and return. In finance, mostly it is about risk and return. Okay. See, anything if you want to do, if it is risk free, it will be return free also. There will be no return at all. Fine. In finance, like, the thumb rules: high risk, high return; low risk, low return. Remember, no risk, no return. All right. So the risk free rate that we talk about is a myth. I'll talk about it and I'll show you what that means. All right. So the main thing is high risk, high return; low risk, low return; no risk, no return. Fine. So now, as a finance manager or as a finance guy, you have to be rational. All right. You have to be rational. Fine. Means if somebody is telling you something and it is risky, just don't like, no, 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 I don't want to do this, there is risk. Then you are not going to ever take a decision and do anything, because whatever projects will come in front of you, all of them will be risky. You will not get 100% project. Fine, risk free project. Fine. So what you need to learn as a finance manager is the trade off between risk and return. How much of risk is good for, like, this much of return, or like two ways in which you can do this. Fine. One is, for a given amount of risk, what is the maximum return I can get, or for a particular amount of return, fine, what is the minimum risk that I will have to take. You have to do this two analysis. All right. All of this will come one by one. Fine. So now this, just do the reading: life cycle, operational, operating gearing, and then here they have written plan to use the cash, payout of the cash, all that, risk management decision. Okay. Dividend decision. So as far as dividend decision is concerned, what are the other things involved? Fine, in dividend decisions. So obviously, see, before making a dividend decision, what are the things that you will consider? Basically, think about factors affecting dividend. Fine. Do you have further investment plans? Okay. Then there is a signaling effect of dividend in the market. So you will have to take that into consideration. The tax effect of giving dividend. Fine. If the share price is increasing, the investor is getting benefit. Fine. His value, wealth is increasing, and he does not have to pay tax also on that, because he's not getting any cash benefit, right? The moment you give him dividend, the government will start asking for tax. Okay. Now, influence on the investment and financing decision. Here we have a question. Let's try that out. You may be asked to calculate dividend capacity. Okay. So fine, dividend capacity, there is one question. Let's do that. Okay. Now, see, and all these things, please read it, because it is already in the most summarized format. So don't just flip pages. Fine, do the reading. It's important. Okay. Like for example, see the 2.4.3. Fine, influence of the life cycle. Fine. So what they're trying to say is, in the initial stages of the company needs cash to grow. So that is why, if it is a young company, dividend payment and the expectation of dividend will be zero. Fine, because the company is growing, right? On year basis. So for that, the company needs more money. Fine. And then you have matured companies, like, the companies which have been around for like 20 years, 30 years. Now they have established themselves, and now they have hit their maturity, means they are now operating in the stable zone. Fine. See, this is the room. Fine. You cannot go beyond this, right? Fine. So the moment you reach here, now this will become a plateau. Fine. Like 100% is the market. You cannot get 110% of the market, right? Fine. So see the growth for Google is already 98% of the internet search market. Fine. If Google grows from 98 to 99%, fine, what is the percentage growth? Do the maths. 1% out of 98 is a very small percentage, right? You will get 1 point something percent. So is this a very good number? 1.0 something something, let's say 1.05%. Is this a very good and promising growth stuff? But then where else will you go? You are already at the top. Fine. See, this is called base effect. This is called base effect. All right. Look at this. I started a company, and in the first year, I made sales worth $100. Fine. Now, what is the growth percentage? Now it is infinity because I am coming from zero. Fine. So 100 by 0 into anything, that is infinite. Fine. So let's not talk about growth in this year. Fine. This is my first year. Second year, I from 100 my sales increased to 200. What is the percentage? Growth percentage 100% growth. In the third year, I again made $100 growth. Now it is 50%. Correct. In the fourth year, I again made 100, and now it is only 25% growth. No, 33% growth. Do you understand this? Fine. 500. So there is only 25% now. See, my year on year dollar value is $100 growth. But what is happening to the percentage? It keeps on going down, right? So after a certain point, there is no room left for you to grow. So that is the maturity stage. And at that stage, the profit that you are making, now you can start giving dividend out of it. Fine. So mature company will have a high dividend payout, lower growth, fine, lower requirement of investment, debt more suitable as cash flow stabilize. Now the cash flows are stabilized, so you can take debt and work with debt. Fine. So read it, and any line, anything that you find here which doesn't make sense to you, bring it in the class. We'll discuss about it. Fine. Now this question, activity one, dividend capacity. The question is estimate the comment on the dividend capacity. So how much dividend they can give, right? This company can give how much dividend? They have given you operating profit, that is EBIT, if you understand. That is EBIT, right? 400. Now depreciation. So depreciation is actually already deducted from EBIT, right? Fine. If it is not deducted, this is not EBIT. It should be EBITDA. Fine. Or EBITDA, as they call it, EBITDA. You may have heard of this. This is the word which is generally used in the professional world, EBITDA. In your book, they can use EBITDA also, earning before depreciation, interest, and tax. But here they are saying operating profit, means depreciation is already deducted. So we don't need to do anything. Finance charge, that is interest. So that is what we deduct. Interest is how much? 30. Then we get PBT, right? Which is 370. Then tax. So tax is how much? Tax is 75. Okay, so now we get what? 295. That is profit after tax. Add the depreciation because it is not a cash expense. Fine. So this becomes, no, this is what, 60. This is 60 depreciation. So this becomes how much? 55, 355. All right. After adding the depreciation. Now, finance charges, preference dividend. they have given how much? 15, I think, right? So out of this, because this is the cash available, out of this you are paying 15 as preference dividend. Fine. And then ordinary dividend 60. So we'll see where it is going. This will become how much? 340, right? And then the book value of the non-current asset. Okay, see, this is interesting. This is interesting. They are saying the book value here is 200, right? And this will increase by 40. So this will become 240, right? So how much more money we need to invest? How much cash we need to invest? Fine. 40, correct? But there is one problem. In this year, there was a depreciation of 60. So technically, this 200 minus 60 will become 140, right? But they are saying no, this will be 240. So that means fresh investment, additional investment is how much? 100, right? So here we'll do additional investment 100. Fine, capital expenditure. So we are left, we got 240. And what this project, okay, this is done. Planning to repay, the company is planning to repay debt, 100 million debt. So if you repay 100 million debt, you are left with 140, right? So your dividend capacity, all right, is 140, and you have declared a dividend of 60 only. So you can increase that, correct? You have paid a dividend of 60 out of this. Fine, so your capacity was 160, sorry, 140, though you have paid only 60, so you must be left with 80, but that's not what they wanted. They asked you to calculate capacity. 140 is the capacity, 140 can be used for paying dividend. Are we fine with this? Any questions on this? Is this okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, practical dividend policies, point 2.4, 2.4.4, right? Now here, see, constant payout ratio. Constant payout ratio means here what we'll do is logical. Okay, yeah. Actually, see, I'll tell you. There can be different policies of dividend payment, but there is one important factor in this, and that is called market signaling. Okay, market signaling. And the issue with this is that if you are a company and, like, last -5 years, 4 years and all that stuff, and then zero till date, you have paid no dividend. Okay, and now you are thinking that I will pay $2 dividend per share. So what will happen? How will the market treat this? Fine, the market, like, you don't have to tell this to anybody, all right, but the market will take this as if now you will pay $2 dividend till the end of time. Do you understand? You can increase this, but you cannot decrease. The moment you decrease, there will be chaos in the market and your share price will go like this, because that means there is something drastically wrong with the company. That is why you are reducing the dividend. So if you have declared dividend $2 here, that means you should be ready to make sure that you can continue with this dividend till infinity. Obviously bad things may happen and you may have to reduce the dividend. Fine, but then again, understand, bad things may happen and you may have to reduce, correct? So if you are reducing and we are saying that, okay, if you are reducing, that means bad things have happened, that means the market is not wrong, right? Okay, that is called market signaling. Now come to this, the constant payout. Constant payout, that means whatever my profit is, fine, I will pay 40% of that as dividend, let's say. So this is called DPR, dividend payout ratio. Fine. So 40% of that, let's say, I will pay as dividend. So now profits on year basis, the profits are not going to remain same, right? Are not constant, correct? So if your profits are growing and you keep on paying 40% of that, then good, because that satisfies this criteria, correct? You can increase the dividend, no problem. And like, understand this. This is interesting stuff actually. See, in zero you gave two dividend, $2. Then in year one you are paying $3, and then year two you are paying $4. See, very good, right? And then third year you have just brought this like down 3.5. All right, and because of this your share price will, like, take a jump off the cliff. It is little bit weird. It is little bit weird because, like, see, 2 3 4, it was going up, right? 3.5 is not that bad, okay, but then the market will take it as if this is suicide now. Leave the company, run away from here. Okay, so profits are not constant. If the profit is down in any one of the particular year, that year your dividend will go down and your market price per share will go down. And if you remember, as a finance manager, you cannot let this happen. So this is an easy way of doing the maths, a clear cut way of doing the maths, but not very likely to be used. All right. Now, stable growth means I will start with 2 and I will give 5% growth every year. So 2, then 2.1, then something, then something, then something. It will keep on growing at 5. And then at some point, I will stabilize this. I will make it like, constant. So no problem, we can do that. Fine, that is okay, right? Because see, all the criterias, I will judge it on this parameter. This is my scale of measuring that this is a good thing or bad thing. Fine, so it has to satisfy the market. The third one is residual policy. Again, very good for management but not good for the market, right? Residual policy says you do your business, earn profit. From that profit you do the reinvestment. Whatever money is required, reinvest. Whatever loan is need to be paid, repaid, pay all the loans. Fine. After that, if there is still something left, give that as dividend. Now again, there is like, there is no what do you say, now that word, okay, there is no guarantee that every year the residual value will be more than the previous year, because that is what we want, or like same. We want same or more, it cannot be less, right? So again, residual policy is a good one, but then with that we have this issue. Okay, scrip dividend means bonus issue. Fine, where the company gives free shares to the shareholders. Okay, and then share buyback is again another way of giving money back to the shareholders, right? Shares buyback is another way of giving money back to the shareholder. So if I am doing business and if I have got enough money now, all right, but I am scared of giving dividend, because with dividend it is a long term commitment, correct? And I want to repay some money back because I have got enough money with me and there is no use of that. So what to do with it? So what I will do is I will call for a share buyback. All those people who want to liquidate their investment, they can take their money, give the shares, take their money, done. Okay. Now, special dividends are basically interim dividends which is paid within one accounting year. Like for example, last year we made a profit of $10,000. Fine. And then the next year is started, and in the first quarter only I have made profit of 12,000. So I will be dancing, right? See, last 1 year I made profit of 10,000, and now in the first 3 months only I made 12,000. Correct? So out of this immense joy, I can come up with this idea of providing dividend. Fine. So I don't know what is going to happen by the end of this year. Okay, we'll see what is happening there. For the time being, after looking at quarter one results, the company wants to give some dividend. Fine. So that dividend will be paid and everything will be adjusted at the end. Fine. That is called interim dividend, special dividend. Again, call it whatever you feel like. Ethics is very important these days. Ethical consideration, ethics is stake. All right, now this is all reading. I think better you guys do this. All right, just do the reading and tell me, do you have anything more than this? See, point number 3 is ethics. In your book, is it the same?
Uh, there's number 4.
Ethics is number 4, right?
No, ethics is number 3, but
Okay.
there's number 4 also. Integrated reporting.
Reporting, fine. And then
That's it.
that's it, right? Okay, good. So here also we have integrated reporting, means your chapter is getting over at page number 11 only, right?
Chapter, no, it's actually, yeah, 11.
Page number 11.
The chapter summary is on 13.
Yeah, fine, no problem, no problem. I just want to find out those 10 extra pages. Where are they coming from? No issues. See, if you just do the reading of all these things that I have left, all right, you will understand there is no rocket science and there is no finance also. Now, these are all moral science. Okay, that's why I'm leaving it. Fine. Stakeholders conflict. Fine. So there can be a conflict between a director and a shareholder, between different shareholder groups, because somebody wants to take more risk, somebody is not that, like, risk seeker. They are risk averse people, so they don't like it. All right, like there can be conflict, there can be some difference in opinion between different stakeholders. Okay, see, employees, they have given that or not, I don't know, somewhere. Okay, see, employees and shareholders both are the stakeholders. Fine. The shareholders will want the employees to, like, to give their life in the production process so that they can benefit, they can make more profit. But this, with this profit, who will get benefited? Mostly the shareholders, not the employees. So the employees will want a more, like, amicable place to work with. Fine, they would like to have a, like, better facilities in the office, easy work environment, correct, not too much of tension. So there is a conflict, right? They want different things, and this is what the management has to, like, think and move with. Fine. In an organization there are different stakeholders who has different objectives. Now how will you bring all of these people together so that the sole objective of the company can be achieved? That is why we need manager. All right. Now, anyways, see, integrated reporting means when you are reporting, when this is actually something from accounts, integrated reporting, and it simply means when you are making the accounts, these are also few of the things that you should talk about in your report. Okay, see, financial reporting. So in financial or financial capital, what is that? Like, the calculation that we do, the balance sheet that we make today, that is on the basis of financial only, because we value the financial terms, the dollar and all that. Intellectual capital. So intellectual capital, how will you do the accounting for that? Basically, we want to do all these kind of reporting, but we don't have proper guidelines. So the problem, what will happen is one company will follow something else, another will follow something else, and it will become very difficult for us to come up with one standard which will fit all. Like for example, whatever kind of company you are, there is an IFRS, all right, for revenue recognition. So whatever you are doing, your revenue recognition should fall under those criteria, then only it will be written as revenue, right? But for intellectual capital means how educated and, like, how intelligent, how many intelligent people you have in your company. Now how will you value them, and what kind of PL and balance sheet you will make for them? So that is why these things are all, like, in the what do you say, discussion these days. These are the new ways where we want all these information also to be there in the reports, but it is difficult. Fine. So they make certain rules, laws to integrate all this. Now, I think while talking about intellectual, I talked about human capital. Fine. Support and organization framework. So social and relationship capital, intellectual, human, manufactured, natural capital. So how many natural uh, uh, what do you say, resources are under the possession of the company? All those things. Fine. Again, it's all about reading. Please go ahead, do a reading. You will be good enough to go with this. Next class we'll do chapter number 2, which can be finished in one class. So hopefully from like by the end of next class we will be over with this 5 chapters. Okay,
Okay.
that is it for today. Thank you. See you guys in the
Thank you,
next
sir.